Hey, what's going on, guys? This is your boy Christian Israel, and you have tuned in to the New Creation Capital podcast. Today is March 30th, Monday, and we are fired up after an exciting weekend. How are you doing? Are you still locked down? Yeah, me too. Before we jump into today's story, I want to give a quick shout out to all the doctors and the nurses and the police and the firemen and everybody who's on the front lines of this pandemic we have worldwide. I know I've been hearing a lot of comments about comparing this specific COVID-19 to other types of diseases or pandemics or man-made events that have happened. And I understand that argument, but right now, this isn't about politics. This isn't about what's worse or what's the background of all of this. This is about those people who are fighting this, because there are still people dying. There are people getting sick who otherwise would not be dying. And I think it's just important to understand about the front lines and give thanks and prayers to those who are fighting. So to all the nurses, the doctors, the paramedics, the police, the firemen, and all those at the front line, we pray for you. We are praying for you, and we thank you very, very much. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into what today's story is about. Now, how are we getting into this? Last week was our first week of the episodes 1 through 5. We're kind of focusing on what the digital dollar was, and then we dove into the stimulus bill, and then was it planned? And so when we started to ask the question, was the digital dollar planned in our stimulus bill, which all Americans are going to get $12,000 now, which is a whole other topic for a whole other day, I started to dive in to see how this cryptocurrency and digital currency was going to work with a digital dollar. The question is, was it planned? We heard Robert Emanuel say,
"You never want a serious crisis to go to waste."
So as we can tell, the IMF, the World Bank, the European Central Bank, the US banks, the Federal Reserve, the Chinese bank, who's coming out with a digital yuan here soon, is not letting this crisis, this COVID-19 world pandemic, go to waste. So we started digging in, and we came to see that the IMF and Christine Lagarde is going to move the money to all these different banks worldwide. We heard words like cross-border payments, on-demand liquidity, and in the documents we keep digging into that the IMF released, the World Organization released, the World Bank released, we started seeing the name Ripple pop up in some of our investigations. So we put those links in the other podcasts. Now, you know I'm a big digital investor, digital assets, in certain things like Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, BAT, just other things in that space specifically. But when you want to invest, you start to ask about the protocol and what is the use case, right? The utility. But more importantly, what's going on the world scale? Can we find the next Google, the next Amazon, the next Netflix? Utility case is everything when it comes to investment. But asking questions started leading me down this path, and when I started leading myself down this path with Ripple, it made something a little bit bigger in hand, right? I started to see something on a larger scale, so we dove in a little bit. So today's main question, and this is a part 1, is what is Ripple and what is XRP? Are the 2 in 1 or the 1 in 2? So that intro kind of gives you an introduction. We're going to dive into a more specific topic of what is Ripple and everything you need to know. So we're going to take it and break it down. This is based off a Cointelegraph article from 2017, 2018. So we're going to break it down and continue to dive. And then we're going to go more into the protocol, more about what XRP is. Now, again, this is a part 1. We're going to do parts throughout the week and kind of work our way in there. So as usual, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for following the podcast. If you don't follow it already, follow, subscribe. This is your first time in. Thank you for listening. We like to have conversations, so please converse with me also on our Twitter, which is @NewCreationCap. We are officially, it is 100% official. You can search New Creation Capital Podcast on Apple Podcast, and we are there. Google Play, we are there. Spotify, we are there. And of course, on our main host site, Anchor. Thank you guys for tuning in. And remember, this is a new you, a new future, and a new creation. Let's dive on into today's story.
The problem we have in the world today isn't that our payment systems are broken, it's that they're antiquated. There are 2.5 billion people out there who don't have access to the financial system.
Settlement today requires third parties. There simply is no way for two institutions to reconcile their obligations without having to rely on a third party to arbitrate.
If you have a central operator, you can't construct that value exchange system on the fundamentals of the internet.
When the web was originally designed, one of the main goals that they had that they didn't achieve was to have a way to transfer value.
Ripple is an open source protocol that is designed to facilitate the settlement of funds in real time in any currency.
Having a standardized protocol allows financial institutions to instantly connect with anyone on the network.
Basically acts as an internet for value exchange. My name is Chris Larson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ripple Labs. Ripple Labs is the technology company that originally invented the Ripple protocol. The Ripple protocol now is open source. It's really a public good. Ripple Labs doesn't own it. Anybody can use it for free as they see fit, really like an HTTP for money. Our job is really just to continue to introduce new innovations that make the core more stable, more scalable, more secure, and importantly, bridges and connections to that core to make it easier for banks, financial institutions, market makers, developers, eventually anybody with an interest to integrate to that core system. That's a big task, and we think you need a phenomenal team of very, very smart, dedicated people working full-time on that protocol if this really is going to be an internet for value exchange.
When looking at the payment system today, it's comprised of a series of components that are designed to custody assets and transmit them around. So at the very top of the payment stack, we have application layers like PayPal, Stripe, Square, applications, technologies that interface with consumers and businesses looking to execute a transaction. Below that, we have banks, the institutions that custody the assets themselves. Moving below that, we start to look at the core interbank infrastructure, rule sets around business continuity, safety and soundness, regulatory compliance. Below that, we have messaging standards, so we can think about SWIFT codes, ACH payment messages, Visa messages. And finally, below that, we have a settlement infrastructure, which is operated primarily by the central banks domestically and correspondent banks internationally. So where Ripple fits today in the existing payment stack is at the bottom. I'm Patrick Griffin, Head of Business Development for Ripple Labs. Traditional funds transfers today effectively rely on intermediaries to coordinate settlement. So while payments can happen bilaterally, fund settlement has to move through a network of third-party intermediaries. What that creates is a system where payments can be lost and liquidity costs a lot more money.
Before joining Ripple Labs, I was working as a Bitcoin volunteer for 3 years, trying to get Bitcoin into the mainstream. And what attracted me to Ripple was just the amazing team that they put together. My name is Stefan Thomas, and I'm CTO at Ripple Labs. One big priority for us at Ripple Labs is to build APIs, which then allow financial institutions and developers to work together and build apps that are innovative and tie into the financial infrastructure. There are parallels between the internet of the 80s, where you had CompuServe and Genie and AOL as individual islands that are unfederated, and then the value web as it exists today, where you have individual payment networks like PayPal, Alipay, and M-Pesa, which also are not connected together yet. And so we think that the same thing will happen where these start to be interoperable through some common protocol.
All the progress we've seen over the last 20 years of the internet, now seeing that bleed into payment systems, transaction systems. So again, it's not that our systems are broken, they work. They're antiquated, and if you could take a step up now, get that analogy of value moving like information has been over the last 2 decades, opens up so many possibilities for existing businesses, the incumbents, their customers, and for the global economy.
Now you have the possibility to deliver real-time payment messages against real-time fund settlement on a good funds basis.
The web gave a lot of people access to information who didn't have it before, and we think the value web will give a lot of people access to the economy that they didn't have before.
This notion of an internet for value exchange, we think this is just great news for everybody.
So what you just heard is a promo video from XRP, from Ripple Labs, called Ripple XRP Building the Internet of Money. And it was from December 17, 2014. Shout out to BankXRP on YouTube for that content. Actually, the digital asset investor is the one who put me on this guy. And this guy has got full of so much content. So this is from Ripple Labs. This is their base thing, and they finish with wanting to be the Internet of Value, which we'll go into. What is the Internet of Value? What is all that stuff? But for main thing today is just to introduce you to what Ripple is and kind of everything you need to know. As you heard them say, Ripple is both a platform and a currency. The Ripple platform is an open source protocol which is designed to allow fast and cheap transactions. So instead of taking forever to do it, unlike Bitcoin, which was never intended to be a simple payment machine, right? It doesn't take forever. Ripple is more like international transactions worldwide, intermittent cross-border payments between currency exchanges. That's why their partners. One of their partners is MoneyGram, which we'll get into in its whole nother thing, and it's ran what's called on the Ripple Net. Okay, so what is the Ripple Net? Ripple Net is a network of institutional payment providers like banks and money services that businesses uses that are developed by Ripple to provide a quick and timely experience to send money globally. So like a PayPal or Venmo or a Cash App, except those things take time and kind of go through different parties from bank to bank to app to app to bank to bank to bank to bank. RippleNet is kind of like taking all of those and put them together. So think of the IMF bank, how they're kind of supposed to connect all the banks. Ripple connects all the transactions of those banks. The platform also allows to make payments in any currency, including Bitcoin, and have a minimum internal transaction commission. Okay? That means the smallest amount. The smallest amount. Let me repeat that. When we have a transaction, it's the smallest amount. That means we heard IMF say, Christine Lagarde say, she wants to make these things happen for as cheap as possible. We heard her say that a bank presented using some type of digital currency, a big bank, and they want to scale it on a large scale, right? For the cheapest possible. The question is, how do they do that, and how does Ripple come into that equation? Well, we just kind of explained that. Ripple is a place that has created technology that says, hey, I want this and I have this. Someone else says, hey, I have this and I want this. And a third person says, hey, I have this and I want this. And so everything goes on one platform. We can make it. Imagine putting Amazon together with PayPal. Amazon together with Craigslist together with eBay. All those three platforms together. And doing the search for it. So what is XRP then? What XRP is, I know I trade it as a currency, but what it is, it's a token used for representing the transfer of value across the Ripple network, okay? The main purpose of XRP is to be a mediator for other cryptocurrencies and fiat exchanges, okay? So a mediator means from one to the other. It's exchanging the hand, it's moving it from point A to point B, and then the middle that's in there. So instead of us going through our Venmo app to a bank, to another bank, to our Venmo app, and then to us, it goes, for instance, if Venmo was using XRP, it would go from our Venmo directly to your Venmo using the XRP ledger. And it would cost you less than a penny to do it. As cheap as possible versus Venmo charging you $2, $3, $4 per transaction. This is like a penny per transaction. Okay? So now you got Ripple and you got XRP. Again, this is the more general conversation about who is Ripple, what is XRP. So we're just going to dive into the top of it right now as far as an overview. Then we're going to break down a lot of these later. So who created Ripple? Who created XRP? All right? This guy named Chris Larsen. And we're going to go more into Chris Larsen in a whole nother episode, okay? But he's basically the angel investor. He's also probably one of the richest persons in cryptocurrency. You see him all over the place. He's the main guy. And then you got some other guys like Jeb McCaleb, and if you really care, right? And they kind of did the thing together. And there's no need to go into that because that's not what this show is. It's not a dig. If you want to really dig into those type of people, the Digital Asset Investor is a great person. Check him out. on YouTube. He really digs into these people and really drops names. I'm here to kind of go over the white paper in a sense, okay? Then you got things like the Ripple protocol and a consensus algorithm, all right? So what makes this different than Bitcoin or Ethereum, all right? Unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, Ripple doesn't have a blockchain, okay? A cryptocurrency without a blockchain may sound pretty strange. If it doesn't have a blockchain, how does it verify the transactions, right? Because blockchain is made to verify the transactions and make sure everything's okay. For that purpose, Ripple has its own technology, which there's a whole court ordeal being that. They're being sued about the technology and the patent. But if you're making money, you're getting sued. If you're getting sued, that means you're doing pretty good, okay? But this patent technology is called the Ripple Protocol, the RPCA, Ripple Protocol Consensus Algorithm. The easiest way to say it, all right? Basically, it goes off nodes. And if you want a better understanding of what nodes are, go ahead and go to the video again that was played about 5 minutes back, and it will go more into the nodes for you, okay? So here's the biggest thing. What is Ripple used for, okay? What is it used for? One, it's got a low commission currency exchange. So if you've ever traveled internationally and you got to change money, you know, from US dollar to the Filipino peso or the Mexican peso, or going to the pound, or going to the yuan, and you have to go through a currency exchange specifically, or send money through Western Union, you know that stuff can be expensive, right? Because they're making a commission off of it. And we know that there are many currencies that can't be directly converted to each other. So banks need to use the US dollar as a mediator. That's kind of why the US dollar is the big thing. And we talk about that digital US dollar being a digital global power is important to the US because they are the main currency. So there is kind of a double commission, converting the first currency to a dollar and then the dollar to the next currency. Ripple is a mediator too, but it's much cheaper than US dollar. As we talked about, instead of going Venmo to bank to bank to Venmo, we're going Venmo through XRP to Venmo. That's it. So we're kind of the Walmart, right? I don't want to put it that way, but Walmart cuts out the middleman. Sam's Club cuts out the middleman. Next, it's used for fast international transactions, okay? The average transaction time, and I can speak, man, I moved so I bought some XRP on Coinbase, moved it to my crypto card, and well, when I bought it on Coinbase, it was made available immediately because I used my bank card. Then I moved it over to my crypto card, and then I moved it onto my Nano X, my ledger, right? That took about 45 seconds total time to move those three things. If I was just to try to put money from my bank account directly onto one of those things, it takes at least, with Coinbase, 7 days or something crazy like that now. The average time for XRP, for Ripple's transaction, is 4 seconds. I'm talking real-time payments. So if I'm moving money from one thing to the other, the price, you know, because we know cryptocurrency can be very volatile, the price of it doesn't move in 4 seconds. Now, we can see those drops, right? But that's kind of the average transaction time, so it can move XRP across, or the price through XRP across to another thing. Again, A to B, or A to B, B to C, versus A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E, right? It's just much faster. It's like me basically handing it to you, okay? So it can also, the user can basically issue his own currency for fast and cheap transactions. Let me give you an example. This is the third thing, like a payment ecosystem. That's the word they use in the video. One can create a currency to buy and see vintage vinyls or action figures between the collectors, right? So if I'm on eBay and I want to use a certain currency to buy and trade, I can do that, right? Ripple helps just move money no matter what you're moving. So if I'm using video games, right? If video games are my currency, I can use that to move across the Ripple method pricing, basically. And that's kind of what it is. I don't know why I use the payment ecosystem example like that, but just think of it as a payment platform. Best way to easy. It's a phone-to-phone payment platform, okay? So what are the benefits of Ripple, right? We're kind of diving into Ripple. So what are the benefits? Ripple is originally designed as a day-to-day payment system. So it is much more powerful and safe than Bitcoin. As a result, the transactions are much quicker and cheaper because it's made for day-to-day. Now, I buy and trade Bitcoin. Again, I said before, this is not financial advice, but my main investment is XRP, and that's because of utility use. Bitcoin is great for speculation, and okay, before you start commenting, Bitcoin maximalists, I love the Bitcoin, I love the zombies, I'm down for it, and Bitcoin's been around since 2009, I get it. The Ripple has been around, the Ripple protocol has been around really since 2012, and they've been working with regulators since the beginning, and we'll get into that. Bitcoin, you hear in the news them all the time talk about Bitcoin, but why don't you hear them talk about Ripple, which is the third XRP, which is the third largest on the coin market cap, right? So there's something there. XRP works with the banks, and well, how do I know this? Well, if you go directly to their website, you can see that their website is just ripple.com. And let's see who runs on Ripple, right? This is what it says here. You got American Express, MoneyGram, PNC. That's just a few. And if I continue to click around, let me see. I'm gonna click on customers here and see what I get. You still got Sontider. Let's see here. SIB Remit. You got payment places in India. Yeah, there's a whole bunch here. If you're more interested here, go to the customers. I mean, just to see American Express and MoneyGram, that's pretty big, and PNC. That's pretty big. I will go into later, and the digital asset investor does great. I'm going to keep dropping his name because he really got me digging by trying to see if he was telling the truth about what he was digging. And I'm like, man, I want to see for myself. So that's pretty big, and I know a lot of people use this as investments, and I invest in it too. I do. But before I say this, as we know, there's no such thing as 100% guarantee. Okay? And I will lay out proof over the next weeks and months kind of about Ripple, but then we'll dive into other things as we go to. But right now, I'm just going down the question. But when it comes to, I think, honestly, me, and this is not financial advice, I believe the number one utility out of all the cryptocurrencies is going to be Ripple and the XRP and the protocol. Point blank simple. Number one, because there's over 5,000 currencies on the coin market cap. 99% of those are going to fail. And then it comes down to use case. What is utility, right? Think of the internet bubble. All those websites and all these things, the only things that came out of that are still here today are use case. So Amazon started as a bookstore. Now you get your groceries there, right? Netflix took out everybody. The eBays, the iTunes. I can't even think. I probably have so much technology that I don't even know. There was so much technology before. Let's talk about Napster, who kicked it off, but they didn't last, right? And I'm not going to put Bitcoin in a MySpace category or a Napster category. But it's important because those guys moved everything forward. I mean, who really still has Netscape Internet? Who still has AOL? How about Ask Jeeves? Do you guys still use those websites? Right? Bing, I think, is around, but barely. So you can have other protocols and other cryptocurrencies, but there's one that sticks out because if you say Google, everyone knows Google. Right? Yahoo used to be a big beast, and I know some people still have Yahoo and they're still around, but Google owns and runs everything, but Google wasn't there first. Google works with the regulators. XRP works with the regulators. So if you would have asked yourself a long time ago, is Google a good investment? A lot of people would have said no, who wants that? But now you ask yourself, Google's a good investment. So the pros of the Ripple thing is that it's an official organization, and it works with over 300 partners and banks all around the world. There was no inflation in the token, and I do believe, and what that means by no inflation is that all the tokens are out there. It's there, a whole bunch of them, and I think 50 billion or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to look more into that, but it's there. Okay. If the banks start to use it, which they already are, right? We know they're with Mexico, the Mexico banks, and they are using it already. But if they really start to use it, like in the middle of this financial crisis, which we already know they are, I will get to that later. All of a sudden, this financial switch, as Chico Crypto says Finance 2.0. Once that flips from Finance 1.0 to 2.0 and flips like that, like the snap of my finger, I believe there's a set price, and we'll go into that later. So, do I think it's a good investment for me? Yes. For everyone that I know personally that is not listening to this podcast, I have told to invest, to put $100 in and let it sit. Just to give you a heads up, if you go back to 2017 bull run, why don't you see what top 100 cryptocurrency coin that exists today had the biggest run percentage-wise, tick back. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's XRP. They went from nothing to $3.70, and like everything else, retraced. And it's on that now. It's already on that. It's getting ready to pull back. And today is not a TA day. I'll have to make a day for YouTube TA. Tell me, by the way, what you think if I should do a YouTube TA one day. I'm considering doing some YouTube TA. But the cons, which I don't think is a con, I think as far as an investment, it's great. But if you're in cryptocurrencies just for decentralization, a la people think Bitcoin is, but I think I put on our Twitter page at New Creation Cap of Justin's son of Binance. I know it was a while ago, but talking about he could roll back the Bitcoin network. Look at my page. It got a lot of tweets and retweets and likes, but he could roll back the Bitcoin network. And if he can roll back, it's not decentralized. We'll go on that later. But centralized means it works with the banks. The whole idea of cryptocurrency is to avoid centralization control. As the tokens are already mined, the Ripple developers can decide when and how much to release or not to release. So it's basically like investing in a bank. So if you think that's a con, give me a shout out. I wish I could have invested in JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Chase Bank, the Federal Reserve when it was launched, don't you? 1931, 1933, whatever like that. I would have gladly. Hey man, sometimes it's about making money. Now, money is not everything, and you cannot serve both man, money, and God. I serve my Lord, but money pays the bills, right? And if you're going to invest, and this is an investment news channel, why wouldn't you invest? If you have the chance to invest in a protocol of a bank, would you do it? Yes. And knowing that they have complete control of it, and knowing that, yeah, right now it sits at 16 cents, knowing that they got to flip a switch in order for them to do what they're going to do, and we'll go into this more, it's got to be at least $100. I mean, if I do TA alone, I expect it to hit 26 bucks on this bull run anyway over the next year and a half. So if I expect to go hit $26, you know, of course that's a great return. Minimum 13, 26, and 52. If the waves work itself out, you know. So that's BC Backer TA, and I agree with it. Shout out to the BC Backer on YouTube. If you don't watch him, give him a shout out. So I like something that if I can invest in the banking protocol, that is Ripple. All right? They own most of their coins right now, but what they do with their coins is when a bank comes on, they give them some of the XRP. MoneyGram just received a bunch of the XRP. They're now starting to work with PayPal. I'll go into all the meetings and stuff later, but I think that's the biggest thing is it's like investing in a bank. Now, what do you think? I mean, then this is just Ripple, and we're going just into Ripple. And people criticize it all the time. You know, I hear it from a lot of people. We see that people have, I forget who says it, that tribal mentality. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tezos, Chainlink, XRP, If one works, they all work. That's just my opinion. But, I mean, if one works, they all work. But what I mean is, if one takes off and catches the attention of the mass, it will bring more attention to others. And someone with the utility, as far as like XRP, it's hard to really fight it. But I want to know what you think. But we'll go into the closing here in a second. But I want to play this video for you that's going to kind of sum it all up. And they break it into a 4-minute video that's called What is Ripple? And then we'll close everything up together, okay? So take a listen from this video from 2018 from IGUK.
RippleNet keeps track of all the XRP and digital IOUs using a public ledger that's secured by a blockchain. This is a permanent record of who owes what across the whole network. To update this ledger with a transaction, all the members of the network agree that the payment took place. So there's no central authority approving transactions or slowing things down. But what about XRP? Well, technically, it isn't necessary to transfer funds using XRP on RippleNet, which has led some to question whether the token will have value in the long term. However, XRP can provide liquidity in any currency, so it can be used for cross-border transactions. You could deposit sterling, for example, with Dan getting paid in South Korean won. In this instance, your gateway converts your money into XRP and sends it to Dan's. His gateway converts it back and pays Dan. Because it can transfer currency much faster and for less money than traditional payment systems, RippleNet is already being used by lots of big-name banks and financial institutions.
All right, guys, well, that's it for today. That was just a little bit about Ripple so we can dive in and begin. I hope some of that made sense. If you got some more questions, shoot it to me. I'm going to continue to dig in a little bit more into to Ripple XRP, what Brad Garlinghouse is doing, what Chris Larson is doing, and what's kind of how this all ties in. And we're going to continue to move forward into the stocks, eventually get into some TA, which is technical analysis, tell you what I'm investing in, why I'm investing in it, because we see that there's just some turbulence in the markets right now. And I think when it comes to the digital asset world, we are expecting a correction, maybe not that deep, but you see 40% corrections really are nothing in cryptocurrency. We're actually pulled all the way back to the end of a fourth wave in XRP, which should be the start of the fifth overall wave. So we will see how that goes and where it is. To give you the quick kind of a heads up tip today, I would say my tip of the day is be careful of putting your money in the actual stock market at this moment. The stock market bounced 20% the last couple of days there, and they're declaring we're back in a bull market, the shortest bull market of all time. However, in that same declaration, 24 hours earlier, they said that 3.5 million people were laid off. And even though we're getting this $2 trillion stimulus where $1,200 goes to you, the citizen, I personally don't expect at least 95% of the people to put any of that money into the stock market or the cryptocurrency digital asset market, because I know that you need the money for your pockets. Like I said, my stepdad was let go. My mother is self-employed, so she had to shut down as well. So I think there's a lot more than 3.5 million people unemployed right now, which is crazy. So my stock tip of the day is to take the money you have and spend it wisely. Make sure you take care of your family first. This is all speculation, right? I mean, if we can make money off of this together, and this is life-changing opportunity, wealth is born out of recession, but it also goes to those who are patient. And so, but if you can't take care of your family right now, then don't take the money that you have and put it away. As they said, most people are living paycheck to paycheck, can't expect a $400 surprise expense. I don't know why people are stuck in that situation. I've been an entrepreneur for over 12 years now, so I understand the struggle. But maybe if you have you had a normal job, hit me up with why you're struggling with that paycheck to paycheck. Don't let us assume the good or the bad. Why don't you hit us up and tell me and give me a tip of the day of how you're surviving out there on $1,200 a month, which is $400 a week, which is the minimum wage, to be honest. That is the minimum wage. They're giving you what $7.25 for a 40-hour work week? That's minimum wage. So tell me how you're doing. Tell me if that works for you in the big city or the small city. Or I see I've got listeners from all over the world now. How are you guys dealing with there? What's going on outside of America? Fill me in. So besides that, I think that's the end of the day. I hope that you guys got a chance to listen to yesterday's scriptures as well. Sunday scriptures. We'll be doing that every Sunday. So we talked about the parable of the sower yesterday in Mark chapter 4, verses 1 to 33, and verses 1 to 34 actually. and it just kind of dives in. So I would love for you to take a second and go listen to it. I break down the scripture, I go over the scripture, and I play a lovely, beautiful song by Elevation Church and Colby Carnes called The Blessing. And it's beautiful. It was performed live at Elevation Church, and I just had to share it. I'll probably play that every Sunday. So for now, I want to leave you guys with a scripture from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6. And it goes like this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. I challenge you to do that. It's hard, but I challenge you. I try to leave you with a challenge at the end of every single one. And this one is challenge you to trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean on your own understanding. Yeah, we do a lot of TA and a lot of stock investment news on here and try to lean on our understanding when it comes to that. But when it comes to the game of life, the investment of life, invest in the one who created you. All right? I thank you guys again. Make sure you please follow, like, subscribe, do the social media thing. As I said before, we are now on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Not to mention, I love to converse with you on Twitter at New Creation Cap. We've also got a Publix OIX website now, and what that is what we put our podcast. It's actually kind of like the Brave. And again, by the way, I'm not sponsored by Ripple or Brave or PublicX right now, but all of those are cryptocurrency. I actually use Brave as a web browser, which is private. And it's pretty cool because when I click on advertisement, I actually get paid in BAT tokens. And then Publix is a blog site just for cryptocurrency. It's about cryptocurrency. And when people view your blogs, they can drop you ETH tokens in. So it's a good way to kind of get into the game if you don't have money to invest right now. So you put your money, you put your skills to work to create an investment. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of investment, before I let you go, let's look on coinmarketcap.com and see what's going on. I can see that the market cap is at $168 billion right now. Almost a little under $20 billion has left the marketplace in the last 4 days. So money is moving out, which is to be expected. People are turning in their coins and getting cash. This is money that needs to be spent, and we can see that happening. In Bitcoin right now, we're at $5,915. Today, as of, we record this the day before we release it, so I say it's March 30th, but it's really March 29th. And we are down 4.90%. Ethereum's down to $125, down 3.61%. XRP is down 6.2% at 16 cents, and Tether is actually under $1, which is supposed to be a stable coin, down 0.25%. So something's going on here, guys. I don't know if we have many winners. Let's see here. Doesn't look like we do. We've got Bitcoin up 7%, Nervous Network up 6.3%, Energy up 1.84%, Verge up 0.9%, Ethereum Classic up 0.8%, and Binance USD, another stable coin, is up 0.08%, but still at 0.99 cents. So outside of that, the other 100 coins on this market cap are down. So just like the stock market, with that said, I'm expecting to see a big drop in the stock market tomorrow. So anyway, guys, I'm out. It is March 30th. Happy Monday. I hope your trades are well. And that, remember, buy low, sell high. This is the new you, a new future, and a new creation. Thanks for listening to the New Creation Capital Podcast, guys. Until next time, love and peace.